Hey guys, welcome back to Hench and Saunters, and this is my retro review of 2013's Man of Steel, directed by Zack Snyder. My favourite superheroes have changed a lot over the years. Obviously, as I've gotten older, I've preferred more mature superheroes, or more adult-themed superheroes. But for as long as I can remember, one consistent superhero that I've absolutely adored is Superman. I, like many, was introduced to Superman through the Richard Donner masterpiece from 1978, with Christopher Reeve playing, for many, the quintessential Superman. My love for Superman was maintained through various animated TV shows, as well as Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. And also, I got to grow up alongside Clark in Smallville, and when he finally put on the cape in the final season, it felt earned. And to be honest, I have a lot of time for Bryan Singer's love letter in 2006's Superman Returns. I've read several comic books over the years, namely Superman Secret Origin by Jeff Johns and Gary Frank, as well as Mark Waid's Superman Birthright. Like I've said in previous videos that focus on comic book movies or superheroes in general, I'm not a die-hard fan, but I've read enough to know what I wanted to see, what I didn't want to see. So let's get into it. First thing I'll say is that Man of Steel is possibly my favourite incarnation of Superman. It's my favourite portrayal of the character. I think it's one of the best, most cinematic versions of the movie. 1978's Superman the movie is excellent, and it is perfect by filmmaking standards. I've seen it countless times. I love it. However, Man of Steel, for me, gives me something I was yearning for in that movie. Action. And you get a lot of action in this movie. So the plot is basically another retelling of Superman's origin story. We start out with literally the birth of Kal-El, and this is the first introduction to this new DC expanded universe. We are symbolically born into this universe, just as Kal-El is. And we spend a lot of time on Krypton, more so than in the Richard Donner movie. We spend maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes on Krypton, and we actually get to see Jor-El in action, and we get to see some really cool sci-fi creatures, all sorts of shit. They went full sci-fi for this movie. We learn that Kryptonians are essentially manufactured. They have predetermined occupations and skill sets, and it would be considered heresy for a couple to conceive a child naturally. And that's exactly what Kal-El is. He's the first natural birth in centuries. And Zod is pissed off about this. Also, Jor-El explains to the council that they have exhausted all of their natural resources and Krypton is doomed. As we all know, Lara and Jor-El send their baby son to Earth, where he can thrive and flourish. Zod's pretty pissed off about this. He kills Jor-El and is imprisoned in the Phantom Zone by the council. Years later, Kal-El accidentally activates a beacon, which Zod latches onto, and because he retrofitted his ship that he was imprisoned in, he would manage to come to Earth to retrieve Kal-El, to capture him, essentially. But when he comes to Earth, he has bigger plans. He also wants to terraform the Earth so that he can build a new Krypton. Superman obviously isn't going to let this happen, and they come to blows. Henry Cavill fits the bill perfectly. He has the physical appearance of Superman, he has the build, but he also has this really somber way of playing the character, as if there's a huge burden on his shoulders. And I was watching Kevin Smith's review of Batman v Superman, and he says that in this universe, no one's happy to be a superhero. I don't think that's generally the case, because if you look at scenes like his first flight in Man of Steel, he's truly happy to be flying. He loves it. You look at the scene where Lois is sitting in the interrogation room with him, and he's kind of got this smirk on his face when he's explaining that the S stands for hope. And I think the complaint that he is too dull and he's too dreary and he's too serious, I don't think it's valid, to be honest with you, because I don't think he's overtly negative. And he never truly gives up on anything. Just because he's not this Boy Scout chipper, fucking 40s comic book character, doesn't mean that he's depressing or emo. Michael Shannon gives a great performance as Zod. He's used to playing a villain by now, so I can't imagine it was very difficult for him. He actually gave a lot of humanity to a usually two-dimensional character, and I really appreciated that. I understood his motives. Amy Adams is great as Lois Lane. She's a terrific actress, so there was no doubt about that. Lawrence Fishburne is great as Perry White. Kevin Costner and Diane Lane as Pa and Ma Kent are perfect, in my opinion. And Russell Crowe is excellent as Jor-El. Really, really big surprise in the movie. Now, Zack Snyder is an incredibly gifted visual director. His movies always look brilliant. And this movie is no exception. There's some incredible cinematography, there's some great visual effects. Now, even though this isn't Zack Snyder's usual cinematographer, Larry Fong, I think this is still great. And although the handheld camera can get a bit annoying at times, it doesn't stop the film from being very cinematic, but it still also helps ground the film and ground the material. I think the film is beautiful, even though it does have a muted colour palette, but it works. A common complaint about this movie is that people get action fatigue. My advice would be don't watch this film then. I need to talk about the score because Hans Zimmer, again, knocked it out the park. The soundtrack for Man of Steel is something that I listen to on a weekly basis. And when it leaked online before the movie came out, I listened to it religiously, all the time. Some favourites from the score are Flight and Earth. Incredible tracks. Although this review has probably already spoiled a load of stuff, I'm going to go really in-depth into spoilers for a second. So this is Man of Steel spoilers, but it kind of goes into Batman vs Superman spoilers. So if you haven't seen either of the movies, stop right now, go and see them, come back. Collateral Damage. This is a big problem for a lot of people, and for me, it's not. You've got to understand, Zod was literally manufactured to be a warrior. He was bred and trained all of his life to be incredibly gifted in fighting, right? So all of a sudden he gets superpowers, so he's even more powerful. Because of his training, he can become accustomed to these powers very easily. You've also got to understand that this is Clark's first day on the job of being a superhero. Yeah, he saved people in the past, but throughout his childhood, he's really kind of been told not to save people, not to show himself, because he's not ready. And, you know, there's that great scene with Jonathan Kent where he says, you know, what was I supposed to do? Let them die? And he says, maybe. And, you know, that shows a different kind of Jonathan Kent, a different kind of Clark Kent. But I love it. So back onto the collateral damage side of things. These two superpowered beings are going toe-to-toe. There's gonna be damage. He's trying to take him out of the city, but this guy is really, really powerful. And again, this is Superman's first day on the job. He's never fought anyone as powerful as this before. Which leads me on to the last resort. Killing Zod, snapping his neck. Now, a lot of complaints, again, say, well, why did he save that family when he's already destroyed half the city? That's not the point. Okay, Superman doesn't necessarily make much of an effort to save civilians and stuff, but he's in a fight with someone who is his equal, if not stronger than him. He's getting thrown around like a rag doll, right? He can't be in two places at once saving everybody when he's trying to steady his flight that he's only just learned how to do. You know, he doesn't know the limits of his powers. He says it in the flight scene. The only way to know how powerful you can be is to keep pushing your limits, to keep testing your limits. He hasn't got to that point yet. So in the subway, or the train station, Zod's heat vision is targeting this family, and Superman knows in that instant that he's not going to stop, ever. He tells him to stop, and Zod says never. He's never going to stop. And it doesn't mean that right now he has to stop him. Because if he stopped him, imprisoned him, then there's nothing stopping him from coming back. And he knows that if this guy is intent on destroying Earth, terraforming it, creating a new Krypton, killing Superman, then he knows he has to put an end to that. He has to kill one person to save millions, to save billions. And I really appreciated that. And what really sells it is his understanding of mortality. When he snaps Zod's neck, he falls to his knees and he screams at the top of his lungs, understanding what he's just done, and also cementing the fact that he is now the last son of Krypton. Now, I do want to go into Batman vs Superman just briefly, because this functions as a sequel to Man of Steel. The trailers market the film as a Batman movie, and I do think it's even in terms, it's kind of 50-50. There is a lot of Bruce Wayne and Batman, but there's also an equal amount of Superman. It functions as a Man of Steel sequel in a lot of ways. As I said, it's a direct follow-on. A lot of plot points are carried over, a lot of things are carried over from Man of Steel. And essentially, the world is divided. Some people consider Superman to be a hero, some consider him to be a threat, and even Clark at one point questions whether Superman was ever real, whether it's necessary, whether he's doing any good in the world. And again, that for me, it shows a real character development. And I think after the events of Batman vs. Superman, the end of Batman vs. Superman, I think he's going to really appreciate mortality a lot more. He's going to appreciate that you can't take lives for granted. Now I feel after the events of Batman vs. Superman, we'll get a Superman who's far more calculated. Just recently, in Superman Unchained, which was a 9-issue comic book run written by Scott Snyder and drawn by Jim Lee, there is one page where he's calculating, where Superman's inner thoughts are calculating what the best course of action is. And I think we are going to get that in the future. You got to remember, this Superman in this DC universe, in this DC cinematic universe, this Superman, he's a rookie. Presumably superheroes have existed for a long time, but he's the first superhero. Anyways, that's my review of Man of Steel and brief discussion about Batman vs. Superman. There will be a full conversation on the couch, spoiler talk about Batman vs. Superman, but me and Rob are going to go and see it one more time. So thank you for watching. If you like this video, please click thumbs up. If you've got something to say, leave a comment down below. And if you want to see more, of course, hit subscribe.